Hello again, everyone, and welcome back. My name is Tom Nelson. This is a continuation of the Diabetes Control video course. This is step number 5 of the 6 steps in gaining complete control over diabetes. This is on weight loss. This is video lesson number 11, part 4, complications due to visceral fat. The word visceral means having to do with the organs in the abdominal cavity. Hence, visceral fat is a body fat that is stored around those central organs that are in your abdominal cavity. Includes your liver, your pancreas, and your intestines. Visceral fat can start causing health issues immediately upon accumulating. It increases insulin resistance, not just in diabetic or pre-diabetics, because it's a retinol binding protein that increases insulin resistance is secreted by that visceral fat. So if you have excess visceral fat, if you have a waist dimension larger than your hip dimension, you have insulin resistance, and it's the visceral fat that has contributed heavily as a cause for it. So it's also stored in the omentum, which is an apron-like, it's a flap of tissue that lies under the belly and under the muscles. It blankets the intestines. The omentum gets harder and thicker as it fills with fat. Even if the visceral fat makes up only a small portion of your body fat, it's a key player in a variety of health problems. The fat cells are biologically active. As stated earlier, the visceral fat is an active endocrine organ. It actually produces and secretes hormones that impact your health. The hormones and other molecules that are produced then and released can have far-reaching effects on other tissues and your overall health. So besides releasing fatty acids that can be converted into LDL cholesterol, they produce chemicals and release them. They promote a wide variety of diseases. Visceral fat produces cytokines, which trigger low-level inflammation, and that can lead to heart disease and many other chronic diseases. So visceral fat also produces a precursor to angiotensin, which is a protein that causes blood vessels to constrict, and it raises your blood pressure. Normally, nitric oxide will release those, relieve and relax those muscles that surround your vessels, and so you will decrease your blood pressure. But this particular visceral fat precursor is a protein that's going to cause the opposite. It's going to cause those muscles around your blood vessels to constrict, called vasoconstriction. So visceral fat also secretes retinol binding protein 4, RBP4, which is a molecule that increases insulin resistance. Again, you recall that insulin resistance is when the receptors on the cells of your body that are normally responsible for capturing and passing insulin through the membrane of the cell in order to allow glucose to enter is going to cause those membrane transporters to malfunction. So the cells will not pick up the glucose the way it normally would or should, and so consequently the blood sugar will remain high, and that excess glucose is going to be converted into triglycerides and stored as fats. So as the volume of visceral fat increases through this activity that I just described, there's a corresponding increase in the levels of RBP4. So the connection is so strong that researchers are currently working on ways to develop a blood test to actually measure those levels of RBP4. So it's going to measure an individual's store of visceral fat. Studies have shown that those with the biggest waist in relation to their hip size have more than double the risk of developing heart disease, even after adjustment for other risk factors like blood pressure, cholesterol, smoking, and their BMI, their body mass index. So every 2 inches of additional waist size is going to increase your risk for cardiovascular disease by 10%. So higher visceral fat volume increases your blood pressure, your blood sugar levels, it raises your triglyceride levels, and it lowers your HDL, good cholesterol levels. People in their early 40s with the highest levels of abdominal fat compared with those that had the least at the same age are nearly 3 times more likely to develop dementia, including Alzheimer's disease, and it usually starts to occur in their mid-70s to their early 80s. Dementia was not associated with increased thigh size. So high levels of visceral fat, a waist circumference of more than 35 inches, are 37% more likely to develop asthma than women with smaller waists. The risks are highest for women who have a large waist or are obese. Belly fat raises the risk of asthma because it has inflammatory effects throughout the body, including in the airways, which is why asthma is included in that. Premenopausal women with abdominal obesity are at a much greater risk for developing breast cancer. Large waists are also linked to breast cancer risk among postmenopausal women. People with more visceral fat have 3 times the risk of developing colorectal polyps, which are usually detected during a colonoscopy. So those polyps in the colon are associated with insulin resistance, which may be the mechanism that increases the cancer risk. Excess visceral fat also increases your risk for developing several other serious, long-term, life-threatening medical conditions, like heart attacks, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and strokes, among others. So when it comes to body fat, it's all about location, location, location. That's central visceral fat. So now let's learn about how to get rid of visceral fat. So now go to video lesson number 11, step 5, part 5, removal of visceral fat. Thank you for watching, and please pay it forward. Thank you.